Today's episode of Vital Voices is brought to you by Oak Tree Medical Center and King Group of Companies, including Cool Runnings Ice, Color Me Agency, and Retro Games 242.
Are you enjoying Vital Voices? Do you find our conversations educational, engaging, and inspiring? Then like, subscribe, and tap that notification bell to keep updated on new episodes and more.
Welcome to Vital Voices, the podcast where we amplify the stories, insights, and expertise of the people shaping the future of our communities, our conversations, and our country. I'm your host, Alexis Burrows, joined today by a very special co-host, my wife, Dr. Paige Burrows. Dr. Burrows is a lifestyle medicine educator and wellness coach, and together we're excited to bring you into a conversation that's close to both of our hearts. So thank you for joining us each week for the nation's most vital conversations where insight meets impact. On today's episode, we sit down with powerhouse couple Kenston and Dr. Terah Davis-Henderson, founders of Live with Lyfe, a mission-driven company equipping leaders, couples, and communities to thrive personally and professionally. They open up about their journey as partners in marriage, business, and ministry, sharing how they've learned to align their vision, navigate calling, and lead with purpose together. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. We're glad to be here.
It's so wonderful to have you guys.
So we are obviously very excited for this episode of the show. This is the first time I have an opportunity to co-host with my wife. And a part of the reason for that is actually the topic that we wanted to talk with you guys about, which is this idea of, couples and purpose and how you build a mission-driven life together. So we both in the past few years have resigned from the positions that we were in. And she has been working on increasing her certifications and her education in the background. I've been working, and we've been working together on building out this podcast, our marketing business, and now preparing to build out her business as she now launches into her space. And so, looking at what you guys have been doing in this space was very encouraging and inspiring for us. And we said, we knew you were coming down for conference. We were like, this is a great opportunity to get you on the show, get you in person,
yes.
And have an opportunity to have this conversation. So we're very excited and glad to have you on the show today. So let's kind of take a step back. I love to do a little bit of history diving when we speak with people for the first time, because it's interesting to hear how you've gotten from point A to point B, right? Mm-hmm. So how did your personal callings develop before you met each other, and how did those paths begin to align after you got together?
Okay.
Yeah, it's a great question. So my path was, grew up in a household. My parents were pastors, teachers, preachers, and so a lot of inspiration. And my dad was a school teacher, and so I would say my career was being shaped at a young age, mm-hmm. where I knew from my dad's crazy stories about high school, teaching in high school, that I did not want to be a teacher. That's what I did know for sure. But I still had a passion for equipping people, and so that led me to studying at Ohio State University and getting my education in adult learning and development. Mm-hmm. And so that's when I started to go down that path of HR. And, I started to know my superpower was teaching and training and developing people. But crazy enough, I now still work. I work with youth as well, youth development, just not the whole teaching every day. I can't do that. I respect all teachers who do it throughout the whole year. But that was kind of my path leading up to, engaging with this beautiful, amazing woman next to me. So.
I think personally for me, growing up in the Bahamas, I was just taught really education, get a good job, mm-hmm. go off to school if you can, if the resources allow, and stay in the job that you studied for. Mm-hmm. So that was my path for a long time. I've lived in the U.S. since 2006, and it literally was just on and off, just like schooling, and then finally got to that place where I had full-time employment at different universities, teaching in mental health. So I knew, similar to Kenston, that teaching was a part of my personal calling. I just didn't know what that trajectory would look like. Mm-hmm. So fast forward in that space, that higher ed space, there's a whole lot of stuff going on in the world today, even in the education space. I ended up leaving higher ed 2023. I left what I saw initially as the dream job. Okay. Like getting to that point where it's like, all right, you are actually the chair of a department. What? You know, that was like the epitome of success as taught, you know, from an early age. But I knew that there was more. I knew that outside of me teaching upcoming counselors, you know, those that were working in the hospital systems, agencies, things like that, I knew that there was a push for me to go more into the community. And truthfully, Kenston, you know, he tried to, I wouldn't say bribe, but
I did everything.
Over time, he did everything to really just get me to see how our paths align. But I wasn't having it because I was fighting those cultural spaces of this is what it's supposed to look like. How dare you go into a space where you don't even have a path fully.
Right.
So yeah, we had that same background as far as my dad. He was a deacon at church, and you know, all I knew was church. All I knew was leadership, things like that. So, you know, it's been a fun ride.
Yeah.
It's so funny because, you know, our paths are similar. Like, so me and your path is probably closer aligned in terms of, you know, kind of being poked and prodded along to be like, you know, this is the way. You know, and she will tell you she had been in the background for a while. You know, Alexis, you need to go on and start your own thing. Like the corporate space is you're outgrowing it quickly. You're gonna find yourself hitting that wall, and you want to be prepared to kind of go out on your own. And so it's the same way. That had been a conversation for, I want to say, at least 3 or 4 years. In the build up to us starting our own thing. And then, you know, the part of it in terms of leaving what is the known definitive path is more so Paige's kind of story in the past few years and how that shifted for her.
Yeah.
Right. And, you know, for him, my dad and my mom, like, they took that leap before. And so it just looks so familiar to me.
Okay.
You know, to kind of see a man who has, like, all this growth and dreams and vision. And I'm like, I mean, it's great to give it to an organization. Like, why not? What's the problem with that? But give it a go. Give it a go on your own and I will support you. You know, give it a go on your own and I will support you. I'll be there. I'll learn a thing or two. I'm kind of like a dinosaur when it comes to like the tech. I'm like, I will even touch a keyboard. I will hold a wire, maybe, whatever, you know. And so that's been it's been amazing for us as well. So I love to hear that with you too.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, go right ahead.
So 2 quick things as you were talking. I think one of the things was I was great at supporting him, but for me to actually take the leap, that's totally different. The second thing though was I felt like I was leaving part of my identity, because it's something that, you know, was cultivated for all of these years. Like you know, invested money, time, energy, all of these things in this area. How dare you leave a part of what became a part of you?
Yeah.
You know, so I had to work through that.
Yeah, because you learn that you climb, and whether it's the corporate ladder version in education, you know, it's the same type of thing. It's like you feel like, okay, so you move from manager to the director, and then you're looking at, okay, so am I looking at becoming a VP? Am I looking at, you know, 5-7 years? Am I looking at entering the C-suite? And then it's kind of like, and that's the thing for me, I didn't realize how much I identified with that until it was like, you know, you kind of might want to look at kind of stepping away from that, until she brought it, you know, kind of to my attention, and it was just like, because then it hit me how much I really was engaged in the concept of climbing the corporate ladder, because it was something growing up that I never really like, you know, my mom worked in the bank for 30 years. My dad was a taxi driver. Like, it was that kind of situation. And it was just like, you know, you go to school, you find a job, you get comfortable, and that's life. And then I ended up, just because of the experiences that I had and the places that God had put me in over the years, that my skill set, my networking, who God put me in contact with, just kind of led to this growth. And it's like, then I became comfortable with it. And then it was like, okay, so this is an entirely different animal that we're stepping into. So it is an interesting thing how God kind of shapes our journeys, and even for us now, I think you guys, before we started, said you're 2 years now into the journey of your own thing together.
Yeah.
And I think we're approaching, in a few months, it'll be like a year, and I think we're like 7 months now.
7 months.
Yeah.
And so it is an interesting thing to hear, and we'll get into that obviously a little bit more. But I know for our next question.
Right. So what I want to know,
Yes.
what was the initial spark behind starting Live with Life? And how did you know that it was something that you guys wanted to build together in the first place?
Yeah. So the initial spark came by way of being in corporate for 13 years after graduating college, and I wasn't in the job that I knew I was supposed to be in. And so if that doesn't make sense, but being in HR, there's many different aspects of HR. I started in HRIS, so it's systems based. It was cool. It was first job out of college, but I knew that's not where I was supposed to be. Then it was HR benefits. I knew I was not supposed to be in benefits. It was so boring. It was so boring. And then, the next job after that was in benefits. And I'm like, hold on, I know I'm supposed to be in training and development. I know I'm supposed to be equipping people. I know this about me and when I come alive. And, it was confirmation after confirmation at those first three jobs I was working at. I would get volunteer opportunities to speak or to train on a certain topic, and even was speaking education sessions on benefits. And after every session, people will be like, Kenston, how did you help me learn benefits? I don't even like learning about benefits, but you made me learn. Like, how did you do it? And so I was like, I don't know. It's just, I love to make sure other people are entertained, but also learn as well. And so, and so it was like, Kenston, you need to start your own business, or you need to start doing this because you're not getting into training development. You're already pigeonholed into benefits. And, but then it occurred to me that in the training arena, there's a lot of boring speakers and trainers. And so I said, well, I'm a lively speaker. And I think it was because of the church background.
Right.
We like, the charismatic preachers, and my dad was. And it was just like, no, I love to have fun. And so there was one person who I remember said that, Kenston, you're a motivational speaker. Like, you motivated me to do this, go further in my career. Another person said it again. Another person said it. So it was just like, okay, there's something to it. Let me pray. And, I started working and, got my John Maxwell certification, got another certification, got a mentor that can help me out in this arena. Because it was 13 years later, I'm like, how am I going to start anything? But it was like, God was saying, it's time. And so I started preparing. And to the point where I got the business name. I don't know, it was one weekend when that came, Live with Life. And it's not spelled Life, it's spelled Lyfe. And so it was about purpose. And so, God, how do I bring my purpose and my career together? And that was easy, because that year he was calling me to do more ministry, more preaching. And it was just like, okay, John 10:10. I come that you may have life and that more abundantly. And so my goal or my mission was to help people, equip people so that they can live a purpose-filled life.
Yes.
And it was that year that I got that pull in the office to say, we're no longer in need of your services. And so I was like, but that day was beautiful because I was at peace. I didn't know what was going to happen. But it was that day that they pulled me in the office and told me those words. And I said, okay, let's go.
Yeah, because God had prepared you for it.
And
Your
God had prepared me.
confirmation.
He was
He'd been
preparing me
Yeah.
an entire way for that moment. And they helped kickstart my business. So thank you, Lord.
I know, right?
Yes, no experience wasted. I love stories like that because sometimes what is perceived as some type of rejection. Perceived. Is actually God's hand guiding you. And when you're prepared, it's even better. It's like you get this call in the office and you go home and smile. Might be a little confused, but you go home and you smile. You say, okay, God, I see you, and I'll take that jump.
And
that's amazing.
And that's what he was doing. He was showing me all through that career, those 13 years, he was preparing me the entire time. Like, because I would get those volunteer opportunities. I was getting experience, but it wasn't enough experience to get hired for a training development role.
Yeah.
Right.
But it was the stories, it was the breakthroughs that was happening along that journey. Now that I tell them wherever I go about those different stories.
So how did you go from, obviously you mentioned you were in higher ed, so what was that process like? And I guess, you know, how did you get to the point of, okay, we're going to continue to build on what he started together as, you know, a couple working in that way?
Tell them, baby, tell them.
Oh, it happened by force. Okay.
I didn't put
But
you on
we
too long.
no. So we actually met when he first was starting the business. So in the back end, I saw the drive and I saw the passion that he had behind his business. At first, it was like I don't know, like is that the only thing we doing, or is like I couldn't reconcile how you bring something into fruition from nothing. So that didn't register with me initially, but as I saw him, you know, like day in and day out, just, you know, putting in the work and the effort, all of the seed in the ground literally just started flourishing. For me, when I say it's by force, not necessarily because of Kenston, but I didn't want to leave higher ed. You know, I wanted to wait it out as long as I could, but I knew, when was it? After September of 2023, I knew that God was telling me to leave higher ed before the new year. And I waited, stubborn, all of that. But it wasn't until my supervisor at the time was trying to assign me new classes, and she needed to know by that Friday, because obviously, am I going to do it? Do they need to find someone else? And that was the time when I put in the resignation, crying, kicking and screaming, because, you know, I knew if I didn't do what God told me to do, I know the repercussions may not be immediate, but it will happen at some point in time. So I couldn't really, you know, push past that. And a part of me, if I can candidly share, is that I knew for a long time that this was a part of my dad's dream for me to continue and to just be in this space on a long-term basis. But in September 2023, he passed away. And I felt like it was just this coming into myself even deeper, where it was like, okay, God, I am going to say yes to you, even though I have no clue what it's going to look like. I don't know where the resources coming from. I don't know, you know, what my role is going to look like, but I'm going to still go forward in this space. And there was that peace, like indescribable peace that came in that space. And, you know, he was jumping for joy and all of that, while I was like, I don't know, scratching my head every day, you know, but it came together in that way, and that's when we built out the mental health wing of Live with Lyfe, so that I can still, you know, find myself in that way. And he's been my agent, I'd say. He's been the one that's been selling me into spaces, selling the work that I do rather into the spaces, and I've just been saying yes to pretty much all of them. You know, along the way. And this first year was a blast.
Kicking and screaming.
You know, I did a keynote in Guam. I mean, what? How in the world am I on this stage? This supremely introverted individual.
Introvert.
But his nudging, like you shared about Paige, his nudging really just, I started to trust those a bit more. Yeah.
And it's beautiful to watch you guys from last year when you guys were in town. I was like, you know, I'm going to have to give, you know, Doc a call, you know, because I am, first of all, everything is just looking so aligned. Second of all, this is beautiful. You're working with your husband. You're using your gifts. He's using his gifts. I'm like, this is what the Lord is calling us to do. Everybody's not going to get that pull to leave exactly where they are, especially when you're comfortable and you love what you do, you know. I got the call to be pulled away from loving what I do. Now, for me, it was in a type of an illness type situation, right? But God brought healing and purpose in that. And so I knew about the walking away, kicking and screaming, because you knew what the Lord is calling you to do. And he's giving you pieces, like snippets of a vision. And it's like, this is kind of murky for me to leave a set situation. You know, I'm supposed to be set up. You know, we in the hospital, we got a clinic. This is going well on paper. You know, but the Lord is saying, come, let me do something a little bit different for you, and then to link it up with your it's almost like icing on the cake. And so when you see a couple like you guys, you know that there's a story. Blood, sweat, and tears.
Sweat,
But the
tears.
stages that you've been to, even in a year.
Yeah. I was in a comfortable faith, and I feel like this past year has God has called me into deeper faith, which I didn't desire, because I was good. I felt good. I was okay.
Because deeper faith is uncomfortable faith. It is an uncomfortable space. And I'm looking at you and I'm laughing, and I'm sure Paige is laughing as well, because it's like I said, it's such a similarity in what it's been like for me. And it's just like, nah, I was good over here.
Yes.
This that you call me into now? Yeah, there's a different animal. I was not prepared for this, you know, because and you know, Paige will tell me this all the time. She's like, you've been so blessed that sometimes you don't realize that it's been a blessing, right? She's like, because you've had it easy in certain ways. Like, things came easy to you. You were able to find your place in your career. Like, God kind of moved you into all of these interesting spaces and kind of built you into this person where you can feel comfortable sitting down and doing something like this today, right? And honestly, coming out of university, this is a far cry from, you know, like, to me, because when I came out of university, I graduated with a bachelor's in business administration. My idea was I'm going to come home, you know, work in the bank, you know, because that's what my mom did. And so you're thinking about what you've seen, right?
What you've seen.
Right. But it's the same thing, because then she's coming from the standpoint of what she's seen, which is, you know, her father leave the banking industry and start his own thing. So it's very, like I said, it's very interesting to kind of look at the parallels, because, you know, I think that there are a lot of people who are either similarly in the early stages of something like this, or have been through this experience and can hear this conversation and be like, oh, I remember when we were at that stage. That was fun. That was interesting. And then people will be like, okay, so I feel like this is where God is leading me, and now I feel confident in stepping this, because I'm hearing people who are talking about their journey. They're not saying it's easy. They're not saying like it's this piece of cake, but they are saying that it is fruitful, and it is a journey that is rife with highs and lows, you know, mountains and valleys, but also one that as you're walking it together, that you're gaining a deeper connection with God, a deeper faith with Him, a deeper connection with your spouse as you learn, because you go through interesting conversations, arguments, discussions, challenges, the whole nine. You know, for me, I take a step back, and, you know, I guess the question I would have for you is like, was there a defining moment, especially where, like you said, when you guys met, he had just started the business. So was there a defining moment that was kind of like, you know, not just our marriage, but our ministry, our career paths have this greater purpose in being intertwined?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely, to pinpoint, like, I knew it, and I always told her, I said, you know, we're gonna work together in some capacity. We're gonna
This is so funny.
we're gonna do ministry together, like, and it's gonna be so beautiful, because it's gonna touch so many more people than we ever imagined. And again, that was part of the fight. And she's like, "What you talking about?" But it. What was it? We did something together that it just was, it might have been my book launch. Yeah. But just when I released the book, and the way we were just working together, and you just knew, like, I was like, oh yeah, this is gonna be a thing, right? When we spoke at a high school together, this is gonna be a thing.
Valentine's Day.
Yeah, this is gonna be a thing, and it's just, you know, confirmation of confirmation. It was just that our biggest, before we even got married, when we went through marriage coaching or marriage counseling, it came out that our biggest struggle is conflict resolution. And so on, you know, the pride, the ego is, you know, is there when we are having intense fellowship. And so that has been the thing that we've had to work at during our whole entire marriage, in all the different facets. But once those things have been worked out, it's just a beautiful thing, where we are clicking on all cylinders, where we can when we get invited to Guam to go speak together on the same stage, it's like we can really enjoy that time together, and traveling across the world. So
I think that is a part of the defining moment. When we have something to do together, conflict always shows up.
Yeah,
it always shows up, and it's like like it could be on the silliest of things, unrelated. And I think the challenge has been for us to identify it quicker, and resolve it quicker, because clearly what we are saying yes to has a bigger impact.
Right.
So honestly, some of these biggest stages or engagements or things like that, there has been some level of residue of conflict prior to that actually coming into fruition. So that's the fight, though, where it's like, if you get to a point where you realize that this is just a tactic of the enemy in order to derail you from where you are supposed to be and what you are supposed to do, then you get over it easier. This time around, it's been beautiful because we haven't had conflict. I think there has been much more intentionality on the front end.
Right.
Because we'll have that day before. We'll have the 2 days, whatever it is,
On the way, too.
On the way,
On the way too.
It's just funny because it's like looking in a mirror, because we have run into similar things. Full transparency, literally before walking out the door to come here, right? And like you said, it'll be the silliest things. It'll be something that is completely avoidable. Not necessarily like a big deal, yes, but not necessarily. And it's something that, like I said, in a lot of instances is completely avoidable, and you have to stop and you have to think, okay, what we're doing here, what we're about to go and do, God has a purpose for. And so the enemy is trying to come in and steal that away and have you walk into space where now there's something unresolved, or something that's like pulling you away from being fully present in whatever it is, whether you're talking on the stage, whether you're sitting down recording a podcast. And so it's just funny to hear it, because it's like looking in a mirror. It's like it's like talking to ourselves almost. As I listen to you speak, so it's an interesting journey to walk. And it seems like, you guys have found ways, and again, this is something that's not perfect, it's not easy, but intentionality, I think that's the word, right? You mentioned you haven't had anything in this particular instance, and it's because of intentionality, and I think that's something that we're learning as we go through it as well, is you have to be intentional, be thoughtful, and also be quick to recognize this is not necessarily my heart or your heart in this moment. This is the enemy trying to take an opportunity to just kind of take that centimeter of an aim that he might have to try and turn this thing on its head. And that's kind of the things you have to be aware of and be quicker at recognizing and resolving and then moving on from, because I definitely know I have communication issues, generally speaking, so that makes conflict resolution a journey for sure for us. But again, it is also inspiring to hear another couple talking about how they've walked through it and they're finding ways to be intentional, and you're building this purpose in your ministry and in what you're doing together.
In real time, can I reframe something really quickly?
Sure.
So this is my challenge to you. Not attaching yourself fully to what the issue is. You said I have communication issues. Maybe, perhaps, I struggle sometimes to communicate in a way that my wife understands. And that kind of helps just pull that away from your identity, because your identity is not that. Your identity is to be a clear communicator in all ways. This is the nature of what you do. So there is going to be a fight in some type of way. It's going to show up probably in a communicative way. So anything that you are called to do, you said health issues. In this way, that is also a fight too, because you are called to be in the space to bring healing. So the quicker we could recognize it, and for us, I know it has to not just be Kenston who recognizes it quickly, because I wait for him to recognize and call it out, because I'm just going to sit right here, nestle up in my pride. But I have to now grow up and mature and be like, okay, Terah, it's the two of y'all in this. So you have to recognize and call it out too, so that it doesn't fully weigh on him when conflict shows up. I got to be the one not to to just expect something to happen and then I just jump into that space.
Right.
So
I would say you taking me to the couch, but we're already sitting on the couch.
On the couch.
Yeah, we're already on the couch.
You're already on the couch. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
So, you guys,
Yes.
what does co-leading look like for you in practice? And how do you divide roles or responsibilities within your business?
Yeah.
Oh, fun.
And so this is an evolving place because it went from me doing everything as an entrepreneur to now having a partner in crime, and I love it. I was like, here, take this. And so, but it got to a point where even when she was supporting me, that I was always saying, hey, hun, can you do this, write this content? Can you write these emails? Can you write them? Because she's a beautiful writer. Mm-hmm. And so my thing is, because, being in corporate, I learned strengths quickly. I know what your strengths are. I've identified them. Let's go. And year one, she wasn't fully committed to that. But this year two, she is really taking it on. That is her superpower. And that's how a lot of weight gets taken off from me, because I don't have to do all the things that I used to do.
Right.
And so, again, playing to each other's strengths has been a key as it relates to running the business. And so, yes, I know you got something. What you got?
Of course. So I agree, because again, I'm more of the details oriented person, and he's big picture and executor. So you can give him something to do, he can run and do it real quick, and that's it. For me, I want to know, I have all the questions. I want to know the details. I want to know the how. Mm-hmm. I want to know all these things. In college, they actually nicknamed me Script, because I had a script for everything. Like I had a plan, I had whatever, But in this space, I think co-leading, we're still in the process, honestly, of like just dividing up the roles,
Figuring that out.
And figuring it out. There has been times when, I desire for Kenston to activate his superpower because I don't want to be uncomfortable.
Oh, yes. Talk about that recent superpower that I had to use.
So May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And last year I started doing a coffee and mental health tour where I partner with the community and coffee shops and just offer free workshops, right? And I did not recognize this young man because he was telling me no. And I didn't want a no. Meaning, we were at a coffee shop and I asked him to like, hey, just talk to the people like out there, I'll just stay here and practice, rehearse what I'm going to say and that kind of thing. And he would not let up. He's like, Terah, you got to get to a point where you can be comfortable in these different parts or these different roles that are attached to what it is that you do. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to hear that. And our son, he was, just sitting there, just, smiling because he already knew what was going to happen. But these nudges, I just didn't see the need for it if he had the superpower of speaking and just walking up to anyone, and saying, hey, come join us for this, this workshop that's happening in 10 minutes. But, it's what? Am I telling the truth?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's still a work in progress, because even in the spaces of us understanding our strengths and areas of growth, there's sometimes where we don't want to be pushed in those areas of growth, even though it'll be beneficial to the business, to co-leading, to, the efficiency of the business. But
so I end up going out there and getting people to come to the mental health workshop.
He did, but I saw it as teamwork, and there we are.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
So I think I got such an important point from that, is that we kind of have to understand when the other is saying, that's not really my ministry, but then also be willing to be stretched a little bit.
Yes.
When you are, so it's like this dance between the two, understanding when it's a little bit too far for my love, my spouse, my business partner.
Yeah.
But then saying like, okay, can I stretch for them? Yeah. Can I stretch for this mission? Yeah. Can I stretch for this purpose? And so I think that's
it's crucial.
But it's how much stretching though.
It's crucial because
like you're trying to stretch me in multiple areas.
We are creatures of habit.
Yeah.
and on this entrepreneurship journey, I've learned how to be okay with uncomfortability.
Yeah.
Like I've learned that I can't stay comfortable.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
I also feel like men, generally speaking, we tend to be task oriented, and so I have that same issue, which is like, you can give me a task and I will go and get it done. All of this rigmarole in the background, it's like, please don't drive me into that. Like, just tell me what you need me to go do, and I'll go do it. Like, I am the doer. Okay. But same thing. It's the planning. It's the thinking. You know, a week ahead, 2 months ahead, 10 years ahead, and I'm just like, I just trying to get to tomorrow. You know, like let's worry about tomorrow. Oh no, this is a very scene podcast at this point. This is a lot of scene that's happening.
So how do you guys keep your communication strong when the lines between home, work, and ministry are blurred? How do you do it?
Oh, wow. Oh, yes. So for us, because we do work from home, early on when I started working with Kenston, actually before I even left my last full-time job, I knew that some boundaries need to be put in place, physical boundaries actually, because it was cute and all starting out. You know, our first year of marriage was a COVID year, so it was like we were just all together, locked like literally 2019 we got married, 2020 it was like, there you go, we're gonna figure out if you actually like each other, not just love but actually like each other. So that physical boundary looks like I needed to find a space in our home that would just be designated for me. And Kenston also needed to have a space for himself. However, we work different. Kenston, he could talk all day to me and still get his work done. No, I need focused time. I need time to just carve out this space. And yeah, don't bother me between 9 and 1 because I am locked in. And when we talk about communication, he couldn't understand why I couldn't switch quick enough between tasks, but I couldn't really express how my brain works. My brain does not work in that way. So there has been like a lot of back and forth and honestly negotiations and just to really respect each other's way of work, but while still accomplishing what it is we needed to accomplish. So that's one thing that we had to put in place. We tried a bunch of different things, honestly. We tried all right, we'll meet at lunch and then we'll chat work stuff then. We tried all right, after 6 o'clock, there's no work talk because somebody to my left can talk about work all day, every day. But again, here's the balance because we work together, but we're also still in relationship and we're not just roommates. We're not just work partners. So recently, actually, maybe about a month or two ago, we like, we need to go back out on some dates now because we've been so like knee deep in this space of building where it's like, all right, come up for air and, plan out a date. Let's stick to the Wednesday evenings, even if it's just something casual, So those have been things that we have played around with. We're still finding our rhythm in different pockets, but yeah.
Yeah, it makes with the ebbs and flows of, as we evolve and continue to evolve and now it's the lines of, ministry, purpose, that are coming together. And for me, those things to me are starting to be one and the same. And so I believe this is my ministry as a keynote speaker. Even when we go in to do workshops in corporations, I believe it's a ministry because we're sowing seeds of whether it's leadership, mental health, communication. I believe it's all a part of what we're purposed to do on this earth. And just like we're about to be here at church, going into churches and teaching them leadership, communication, and advancing the kingdom, they're all seeds that are being sown. And so, but it's to being intentional when we do travel wherever we go, that we take time out for ourselves without talking about a single thing as it relates to those things. So.
And just to affirm you, babe, you have been doing so much better in this space.
Thank you.
So I really appreciate the effort and the time that you put into catching, he's been catching himself a little bit quicker, like, oh, well, let's just not talk. Let's talk about it tomorrow or things like that. So that's been really helpful.
It's tough. because it's so fun. I mean, I come alive when
He does.
when we're talking about building people, equipping people, to go and be great. Like that's exciting. To
It's
me.
exciting.
It's your
Yeah.
passion.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The one thing that we talking about communication, one of the other big areas is us recognizing each other's capacity. For me, my emotional capacity looks different from Kenston's. And even if I have a smaller capacity in this area, doesn't mean that, we can't still work or figure out how do we, work better together. So I'm going to be over it by 5 o'clock because now I have to switch gears. Okay, what are we going to eat? I have to go figure out this. Like I'm switching into different modes where I'm able to gift him that time to relax and to, but in order for me to operate in these other roles and spaces, this is what Terah needs as well. She needs uninterrupted time in the morning up until 1 o'clock because now it's school pickup right after that. It's, all of the things that make us into the dynamic duo.
Yeah. But let me just tell her. Can I tell the truth? Okay, so she calls me out when she's speaking on mental health things because
yes,
she talks about this thing, the boundary that she explained, and she tells me where. Tell them.
I tell them the journey.
The journey.
Yes, I speak on the journey of what happens in real life sometimes.
So what happened?
So what happens is if he interrupts me between 9 and 1, I'm flustered because you're not respecting my boundaries. But for him, like it could be 9:05 and he's like, babe, like
I just got one question.
I just got one question.
It's only one.
It's only one. But he doesn't see the cost of the one. The cost of the one means now I got to reset, figure out where I left off at, so, but you've grown from that space.
Yes.
Yeah.
I put it on my calendar not to interrupt between 9 and 1. It's in my calendar.
I love it.
I love the mutual respect you guys have. It's not like it's been so easy or like there's been no hiccups inside this whole thing, but it's the fact that you guys are willing to begin again every day and say, I'm going to be a little bit better at this than yesterday. This is really hard for me, but I respect that because it's feeding you in a way. I don't understand it, but it's okay because it concerns you. Yeah. It concerns me. I love that being a part of it. Yeah. And you guys are communicating your needs. Yeah. Yes. That's not easy for everybody. Yeah. To communicate a need.
Exactly.
So I love that.
Even for him, like if he doesn't, even though he doesn't want the details, okay, Terah, it means now put that in a system. Put that in a system that can still benefit the business, even if he doesn't want to see or hear it articulated all thoroughly, through. So maybe it's just like an update in our weekly check-in meetings. Now I just give a little plug-in, like an update there versus even though that brings me to life. I want to talk about all of the things. But if he's going to be checked out in 1 minute, then it's not worth it,
Oh man, I can't wait to spend some more time with y'all outside. Vision alignment when you are two professionals, well educated, well experienced, and I imagine in a lot of ways, like you said, there were certain things you had in your mind, from you were, a high schooler in SAC. Shout out. Sorry, just had to make that plug.
Oh,
Sackers,
wow.
But yeah, and similarly, I imagine the same things. It has to happen. It's okay. It's a big red machine thing.
It was expected. It was necessary.
But how do you stay aligned in your long-term vision while also giving each other space to grow as individuals? Because you're working together, intertwined, but there's also still things that, you may have, like I said, visions, you may want to accomplish goals, dreams. How do you navigate that space?
Yeah. You want to take it? You think so? Yeah. Okay. So, for me, I felt like I was just becoming so inundated with work stuff. And I felt as though I was really just forgetting to re-explore who Terah is also outside of work. So most recently, Kenston, he was able to, the drummer at our church, he was able to barter with him. Am I able to say that? Barter? Sure. He was able to barter with him to get me drum lessons because So now I'm taking drum lessons because I know that I am creative, but in other ways as well. And it's not necessarily to say, oh, well, let me play on stages and all of that, though that sounds fun too, but to really stretch myself in the other creative areas outside of just, because counseling and, talking about mental health can be draining in itself. So I needed something to activate a different part of who I am. Because I played the piano, but I didn't stick with it growing up because it was something that was told. You need to go to piano lessons, not something that naturally, came out of who I am. So he's been an encourager in that space. And also Kenston likes to go fishing. So the moment that he, gears up in that space to say, well, all right, I want to actually go fishing. I want to, so I'm thinking of ways of how I can support and make that happen, because that also, once we're fueled individually, that's a greater gift and blessing even to the relationship, so that brings another level of excitement too.
And I think it's just even finding balance, and even our goal is for her to go away once a year, me go away once a year, just to get refueled, refreshed, and then come back it really adds value to every area of our lives.
That's awesome.
Right, you have your individual identities, which is really important, especially when you left an identity that's set in stone. So that's a key point. That's a key point. So how do you guys discern when to say yes to new opportunities, and how do you know when it's not the right time or right season?
I think, because we run everything past each other, it's just we're asking, we're praying first, but then and we're also talking about it just to see if it makes sense, because we've had to say no to several different things that it wasn't in alignment, simply because it wasn't in alignment.
Right.
Like, that's the biggest thing. If it's not in alignment, if it's not on what God has told us specifically to do, what we're called to, then I need to really pray if that's even for it. And, and it may have a cost value attached to it. But at the end of the day, do we need to even be a part of it is the questions that we're asking each other. And if we get no, then we're not going to do it.
And sometimes it's tempting too, because that could be the same dollar amount that like, and they going to do what? So again, it's like, all right, so we're going to choose you, Lord, in this. So I agree with everything that you said.
Right. And you brought us to this point of praying first. Clearly that's a part of how you guys are discerning which step to take. Do we leap forward? Do I pray about it? Look like you're praying about everything. And for us, that's become our saving grace.
It's a necessity because
going back to the Word of God.
Because we've had similar situations where it seemed like a door was opening, and the more we examined it, and in some instances, God had to slam the door shut himself, right? Because we were walking towards the door because we thought it was open, and then God was like, but then we also, and I will especially give Paige credit for this, because I tend to be like, door? All right, we come in, right? But she tends to take the approach of, God, if that door is not for us to walk through, close it, right? Which I'm grateful for, because like I said, and this may just stem from being the man in the household. You think about things from a different perspective. So like for me, a lot of it is going to start with the financial component of it. Like, do we have enough? Do we have enough for what we're trying to do? And so I see a door, I'm like, run it. Right. But I'm grateful because, a lot of times because even if it's like an opportunity that's for me, she was like, God, if that door is not for Alexis, don't let him walk through it. Right. But she will also say it for herself. Right. If that door is not for me to walk through, close the door. And we've had that happen. And we've also had instances where we saw after sitting down, discussing it, reminding each other, hey, what are you trying to accomplish? What is your vision? What is your goal? Does this align? And similar, she will ask me the same thing. And so it is that idea of taking a step back and saying, okay, no, this particular opportunity does not align with the vision, the goal, the strategy, and therefore we have to say no. And like you said, sometimes there are dollar values attached to that, and you have to say, well, you know, God will make the way. And we've seen that God has made a way, you know, and it's a matter of just trusting that part of the process, which sometimes is difficult to do. But at the same time, when you look back, and I always encourage people to do this, and it's something that, you know, we always try to do. You look back and you count, you know, the blessings. And I feel like we talk about this all the time as a couple. You know, there's so many things that we learned growing up in the church that sometimes we take for granted. But that concept of counting the blessings, and so we take that as go and sit back and review what the Lord has done.
What's the score
right?
sheet?
You take a look at the scorecard and you say, you know, and where has God come through? And you're like, and you realize, and so this is for me, I had to realize, even as I talk about my career path, God placed me in those situations. God has crafted the individual that's sitting here being able to do something like this in the moment, right? Because again, walking out of Acadia University with my degree, this was nowhere in my mind. And so I know that, and it is by, again, taking a step back, checking the scorecard and being like, you know what? God has been faithful. Because sometimes you get, like you said, I think you said it earlier, sometimes you get so lost in the weeds that you don't, you have to kind of come up here and be like, you know, wait, hold on, wait, let me take account and let me make sure that I'm viewing this correctly and I'm taking the right stock of what's happened and what's happening. You know, as we move to wrap up our conversation, and this has been an excellent conversation thus far, you know, looking ahead, because I think spaces like this give us great opportunities to provide advice to other people who may be, you know, at an earlier stage in this journey and kind of want to be able to get some sort of inspiration, insight, something along those lines. So what advice would you give to couples who feel called to building something together and are unsure where to start?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say pray. In all things, pray again. But really just talk it out of what do you see yourselves doing together and how you see your paths aligned. Like, you know, before Terah came on, like I seen what she was great at. I knew she was a teacher, an educator. I knew that she had a mental health component on it that people needed. And I think when you put us together, mental health, leadership, development, communication, belonging, those all come together under one roof of, you know, transformation. And then when we add the spiritual component onto it, then we're able to take this whole transformation into the church and the whole body of Christ. It can be elevated when that happens. And so for couples who are just along this journey, again, finding out your strengths, take one of those DISC assessments, one of those Myers-Briggs assessments, one of those Strength Finders assessments, because it gives you clear insight on what your strengths are and what your areas of opportunity of growth are. And so that way you can work together and play well together. So that way you can, if this is what God has called you to do, then he's going to prepare you and you're going to be equipped to go through those things. So.
Yeah, I think is also, well, personally for me, it was about trusting the visionary. So identifying who the visionary is in your relationship and trusting that God will speak to them in that for the situation, because he already knows the desires, he already knows your plans, and his plans are higher than yours. But he also walks some of his plans through the visionary too, and he will confirm it. He will confirm it to both parties. I think my confirmation just came later. But one thing that I can do, when you said as far as like check the scorecard, everything that Kenston said to even to the point of getting me to Ohio has happened. And the level of surety that he's had in God, the track record shows, you know, so that's one of the reasons why I say trust the visionary within the relationship. But also that preparation is key. So again, like if this is something that you feel that you've been called into, 20 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, if even. not putting it on the back burner for such a long period of time, but actually taking those steps. And like Alexis even shared about Paige, God, sever this from the root if this is something that we are not to walk into, and make it so plain. And when we prayed that prayer on many occasions, it, like, you felt that, like, you felt that tension, you felt that disconnect that happened in the moment. But it's up to you to recognize and to act on the fact that this may not be the path.
Right.
So God, show us what it is. You know, for me, again, like, if you're someone that's struggling with detaching parts of your identity to really come into that space of who God has called you to be, first, and also in relationship, then you're gonna have to identify what is fear-based thinking. Because fear-based thinking can really sabotage the very promise that God has called you towards. I'd say even relationally, fear-based thinking almost cost me this relationship because I didn't expect the package or whatever culturally has been shared along the lines. I didn't expect the package to look like he did in the moment. My eyes were glassed over with what I've heard from this person or that person or whatever, but once I got into that quiet space and received the level of correction from God,
yes, Lord, yes.
then you know, I was able to clearly see, you know. So whatever has been identified as truly rooted in fear, I'd really just even encourage you to just pray about how can I move past fear even though I don't see the next step, because fear can show up in multiple ways.
Yep.
You can get to fear can show up when you're moving even in business from one level to the next. So God, am I communicating out of fear to my husband right now?
Right.
Insecurity, is that what's showing up? All right, so now it's going to look different.
Right.
Now the prayer changes a bit, you know, because it's you that got to get out of the way even more so. But man, it's a journey.
It's a journey.
It's fun, it's stretching, it's humbling. It's all of those things, probably in the same day sometimes, you know.
Yeah.
but
don't we know it?
Yeah, don't
I just thought about it.
Know it.
yes,
Don't
yes,
we know it.
yes. Yeah.
Jump here.
Okay, so we're going to wrap up with this beautiful question. What's next for Live with Life? And what legacy do you hope to leave as a couple in purpose?
That's good. That's a good question. You know, what's next for us is, again, we feel like we're called to equip people. And so I feel that God is calling us to build a team of people who desire to do what we do and to go out and equip people. And so that sounds like discipling, huh? That sounds like, so yeah, in ministry, and in career. But doing that because we're being called to more and more places. We can't be at every place. And so to build a team to be able to go and represent, Live with Life is on the horizon. And so so that way we can continue to even talk about legacy, and so that way we're not the only people going out and doing the work. Multiply. So that's a part of it.
Yeah, and even in ministry, we're now building teams. We're now building teams. We're over the lead deacons, over the deacons right now. So we're helping them build out teams, like the facilities department, this and that. Like, we're helping them grow those spaces. So we see it happening there. So it's like, now, okay, Lord, like in this space, what does it look like? But we've tested out, a few, but it's like, you got to know that this is the path and the journey that God is carrying you on, because it's gonna be good, but it's also gonna require a ton of effort.
And so we're trying to casually recruit our son to get in the business, because
he's bribed him.
He'll be 18 this year, and so he's starting to think about school and plans after school. So I'm hoping we're hoping he get into some type of videography.
Maybe I'll share this clip with him.
Yeah, no pressure.
And,
no pressure.
Something AI, something to do with content creator, so we can stop doing social media stuff.
That's fun. This has been an amazing conversation. Thank you guys so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you have conference, you have time for relaxing, all of that built in. We are grateful for having you come on this episode of the show. It's been a great conversation. I'm pretty sure we're going to have to come back and continue this in a follow-up episode down the line. But this has been a great time in talking in fellowship.
Yeah.
Yes,
Thank you for having
absolutely.
us.
All right, so that was Kenston and Dr. Terah Davis-Henderson sharing truth, grace, and wisdom on what it really takes to build a mission-driven life as a couple. To learn more about their work or access resources for leadership, mental health, and spiritual growth, visit livewithlyfe.com, and that's Lyfe spelled L-Y-F-E. Thank you for joining us each week on Vital Voices for the nation's most vital conversations, where insight meets impact. Until next time, stay informed, stay connected, stay well, and stay tuned for the next Vital Voice.
Are you enjoying Vital Voices? Do you find our conversations educational, engaging, and inspiring? Then like, subscribe, and tap that notification bell to keep updated on new episodes and more.
We'd like to thank today's sponsors, Oak Tree Medical Center and King Group of Companies, including Cool Runnings Ice, Color Me Agency, and Retro Games 242.